Right now, somewhere on your porch or out back, there's a piece of wood that's gone gray. Maybe it's a door, maybe it's a fence post, or an old dresser somebody's grandmother left behind, sitting in a garage collecting dust because nobody wanted to deal with it. And you look at it and you think, that's done, that's finished. Might as well haul it to the dump. Well, I'm Robert. I'm 102 years old, and I'm going to tell you something nobody's told you in about 70 years. That wood isn't dead. It's just thirsty. Nobody's told you that in a long, long time, and there's a reason for it, but we'll get to that. Now, I want to take you back a ways first. I was maybe 16. This was out behind my father's barn, and there was a door on that barn that had gone the color of an old dime, gray, cracked right down the grain in 3 or 4 places, splinters coming up along the bottom edge where the rain hit it every spring. I was fixing to tear the whole thing down and build a new one, had the crowbar in my hand and everything. And a neighbor of ours, a man named Earl, he farmed the property just east of us, about 80 acres of corn and a few hogs. He come walking over, probably heard the hammering, and he just stood there a minute watching me pry at that door. And he said, "Boy, don't you tear that down. That door ain't dead. It's just hungry." I remember laughing at him. Told him a piece of wood doesn't eat, and he just shook his head, went back to his own place, and came back maybe 20 minutes later with a rag and a can that didn't have any label on it, just a dark, almost amber-colored liquid in it. Smelled a little sharp, a little sweet at the same time. He didn't explain much, just wiped it on, go in the same direction as the grain, not across it, and told me to leave it be till morning. I didn't believe anything was going to happen. Went to bed thinking I'd wasted a can of something for nothing. Next morning, I walked out there before breakfast, and I'm telling you the truth, that door had color in it again. Not painted, not shiny like a new car, just alive again. The gray was gone. You could see the grain running through it like it was a fresh-cut board, except it wasn't fresh. It was the same tired old door, just fed. I never forgot that, and it took me a good while, years really, to understand what was actually happening in that wood when Earl's rag touched it. But once I did understand it, I started noticing gray wood everywhere. Porches, barns, furniture sitting out at the edge of driveways with a free sign on it. And every single time, I thought the same thing Earl must have been thinking. That wood isn't ruined. Somebody just stopped feeding it. Here's a small thing that might surprise you. Wood, even after it's cut down and dried and nailed into a house, it's still got tiny channels running through it, the same ones that used to carry water up from the roots to the leaves. Those channels don't close up just because the tree's dead. They stay open, empty, waiting. And when they dry out completely, from sun, from wind, from 40 Ohio winters, the wood shrinks around them and starts to crack and go that ash-gray color you see on old barns. That grayness isn't rot, it's dehydration. Same as skin gets when it's cold and dry, except would take a whole lot longer to notice on a person than it does on a fence post. Now, my father used to say something about that door, too. He said the trouble with most young men is they think if something looks bad, it must be broken. And most of the time, it isn't broken. It's just neglected. And there's a difference between the two that costs people a whole lot of money to not know. I'll tell you a number, and you sit with it. A contractor coming out to refinish a deck around here, and I checked on this recently because my grandson was getting quotes, runs somewhere north of $900. Sanding, staining, sealing, a full weekend of a man's labor and a truck full of equipment. $900 for something that, and I mean this, costs about $2 in ingredients if you know what you're doing, and you've got a bottle from the hardware store already sitting on a shelf. $2 against $900. That gap is not an accident, and we'll come back around to that in a minute. But I want to finish telling you what's actually in the can, because that's the part that matters to your wood today, not tomorrow. What Earl put on that door, and what I've made probably 300 times since, on doors and dressers and porch rails and one very stubborn church pew, is 3 things mixed in equal parts: boiled linseed oil, plain white vinegar, and turpentine. That's it. No secret ingredient nobody's ever heard of, just those 3, stirred together in an old jar. Nothing fancy about the jar either. Now here's why each one of those does something the others can't do alone. The vinegar goes in first, in a manner of speaking. It's mild enough not to hurt the wood, but it's got just enough bite to cut through years of grime and that grayed, weathered top layer, opening the wood back up like it's clearing its throat. Then the oil, and this is the part people miss. The oil doesn't sit on top. It goes down into those little empty channels I told you about, the ones that used to carry water when the tree was alive. It swells them back out from the inside. That's the difference between this and a can of varnish you'd buy today. Varnish sits on the surface like a raincoat. This soaks in like a drink of water. And the turpentine's job is just to hurry things along. It thins the oil out so it moves faster into the grain, and it speeds up the drying, because linseed oil on its own, without any help, can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months to fully cure. And in the meantime, your wood stays tacky and picks up dust and bugs and whatever else is blowing around your yard. Nobody's got 2 months to wait on a porch rail. The turpentine cuts that down to hours, sometimes overnight, same as what happened with Earl's door. Now, I keep hearing this phrase, any wood, and I want to be straight with you on that one thing, because it isn't quite true, and I'd rather tell it to you plain than have you disappointed. Oak is a strange animal. I've seen boiled linseed oil go on oak and come out darker or blotchier than you'd expect, more than on pine or fir or cedar. Nobody's fully sure why. Something about how tight the grain runs in oak, how it takes oil different than a softer wood does. So if you've got an oak table, an oak door, anything oak, you test it first. Little patch on the underside, someplace nobody looks. Wait a day. If it looks right, go ahead. If it goes dark and blotchy, you know before you've ruined the whole piece instead of after. That's the kind of thing a man learns by ruining one table, and I'd rather you skip that lesson. Now, how you actually put it on matters near as much as what's in the can. You take a rag, an old cotton one, t-shirt material's fine, and you wipe it on going with the grain, the same direction the lines in the wood are running, never across it. My father used to say you go the way the wood breathes, and however plain that sounds, it's about right. Going across the grain just smears the oil over the top instead of letting it work down into those open channels. You put one coat on, and then, and this is where folks get impatient and mess the whole thing up, you leave it alone for a full day. You don't touch it. You don't wipe it again. You let the oil sit there and react with the air, because that's what actually hardens it. Oxygen meeting the oil and turning it from liquid into something like a thin, flexible skin inside the wood fibers. Rush that step, put a second coat on too soon, and you'll end up with a wood that stays sticky for a week, maybe longer. And that's the complaint I hear most from people who tried this once and swore it didn't work. It worked. They just didn't wait. Second coat goes on the next day, same direction, and by the third morning, most times, you've got wood that looks like it came out of a mill yesterday. Not shiny like plastic, that's the other thing. This isn't a glossy finish. It's not going to look like a bowling alley. It's going to look like wood. Real wood, with its own color and grain showing through, the way it looked before decades of sun bleached it out. Now, I want to say something here, and I don't say it to sound clever. I say it because it's just true, and it's a question worth asking yourself. Who benefits from you not knowing this? Because I promise you, my grandmother knew it, Earl's grandmother knew it, every farm wife in 3 counties around here knew it, back when a fence post or a barn door had to last 40 years because there wasn't money to replace it every 10. And then, somewhere along the way, I'd put it sometime in the 70s, maybe the early 80s, when I was already an old man myself, the paint cans on the shelf all switched over. Polyurethane, acrylic, plastic-based sealants, things that go on quick, look glossy, and need redoing every few years, which, if you think about it for half a second, keeps somebody in business a lot longer than a $2 jar that lasts you a lifetime does. I'm not going to tell you there was a meeting somewhere, men in suits deciding to bury this on purpose. I don't know that, and I won't pretend I do. But I'll tell you this, simple, cheap, and it lasts forever. Those are 3 things that don't sell real well on a store shelf, and make of that what you will. I know what I make of it. Now let's talk about where this doesn't work, because I promised myself a long time ago I wouldn't sell anybody a miracle, and I'm not about to start now at my age. If you press your thumb into that wood and it gives, if it's soft, spongy, crumbling under your finger, that's not dehydration anymore. That's decay, actual rot. And no amount of oil is going to bring back wood that's already come apart at the fiber. That board needs replacing, plain and simple. And anybody who tells you oil fixes rot is selling you something. This treatment is for wood that's gray, dry, and tired, not wood that's already given up the ghost. And you cannot put this over paint or old varnish. If there's a painted surface, the oil's got nowhere to go. It just sits on top of that old coating and does nothing, because the wood underneath is sealed off from it. You'd need to strip that old finish down to bare wood first, and that's a different job entirely. More work, more time. This treatment is for naked, weathered wood, not a painted porch rail that's peeling. And one more thing, and I mean this. Turpentine is not something to fool around with in a closed-up room. You want a window open, a door open, some air moving through, same as you'd want with any strong-smelling solvent. And the rags. This is the part people don't expect. You lay those rags out flat outside to dry before you throw them in a trash can. Balled-up, oil-soaked rags thrown in a bin can heat up on their own and catch fire. And that's not me being dramatic. That's just how the oil reacts with air when it's bunched together instead of spread flat. Lay them out on the concrete, let them dry hard, then throw them away. That's the whole of it. Nothing hidden past what I've already told you. And look, some of you are going to try this on that oak dresser, and it's going to go blotchy on you no matter how careful you are. And that's not because you did it wrong. Some wood just doesn't want to cooperate. And an old man on the internet telling you it works on any wood is stretching the truth a little further than it'll go. Test first. Always test first. But for most everything else, cedar fence, pine door, an old fir table somebody left in a barn, this'll bring it back looking about as close to new as anything short of replacing the wood entirely. And it'll cost you what's sitting in your grocery money for the week, not what's sitting in your savings account. I think about that door of my father's sometimes still. It stayed on that hinge another 20-some years after Earl fixed it, long after I'd left home, long after Earl himself had passed. My father never did tear it down and build a new one, just kept feeding it, once every couple years, same rag, same 3 ingredients. Wood doesn't need to be replaced most of the time. It needs to be remembered. So here's what I'd ask you to do. Go look at whatever gray wood you've got sitting around your place right now. A fence, a door, an old chair nobody sits in anymore. And tell me in the comments what it is. I want to know what's out there gathering dust that doesn't need to be. And next time, I want to tell you about something my father kept in a coffee can in the barn. An old mixture that kept every tool he owned from ever rusting. Not one speck, not in 50 years of Ohio winters. That one surprised even me when I first learned it, and I think it'll surprise you too.